before we really dive into your whole storyline, I'm going to focus on that point for just a second, because there's something that you said in one of your clips on YouTube that I think people really need to understand. And it is you were talking about a friend calling you out on recording all of your stuff and saying that you were trying to be Michael Brody-Waite, not just being Michael Brody-Waite. So why don't we just start off talking about what that means?
Yeah, so my whole life is about being as authentic as possible, and not just like being selectively authentic or having curated authenticity, but practicing rigorous authenticity. And so I put out a lot of content encouraging people to be authentic, and I'm sitting there and I'm making this content, and that friend was actually my wife. She knows me really well. And she's recording, and she's like, stop. And I'm like, what? She's like, you're not being yourself. You're trying to be what you think people want Michael Brody-Waite to be. And I was like, well, okay. Because I was like, wanting to get argumentative, right? I'm like, I don't agree, because I agree with all the things I'm saying. I'm being authentic. I'm being vulnerable. Right. And she's like, yes, but I can tell the difference between when you were talking to everybody and when you were talking to one person.
Wow.
And when you were talking to everybody, you were performing. And I've seen you in your life way before we started doing this content stuff. When you are talking to another recovering addict or a leader, you dig in and you're not as animated. You're not saying all that, your hands aren't going everywhere. You're not being as intense. And she was just like, you're trying to be Michael Brody-Waite instead of actually just being Michael Brody-Waite. And I'm really lucky that my recovery taught me to recognize the truth when I see it. And she was right. And I also had a really interesting moment. Like the next time we were doing content, she called me out again. It's something that we keep working on, because I don't want to do that, but it's really hard.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, it is. And that's something that I deal with all the time, right? Because and we'll dive into the meat and bones of what it actually means to be a mask-free CEO. But, as somebody that has taken a podcast from my mom's basement to, my spare bedroom of my college apartment, where we used like old floor mats to insulate the walls, to now sitting in an office in downtown that I pursued a grant for, and doing business with companies in California and New York and, all across the country as an ICU nurse. Like, that's what I graduated school for. Yeah. People look at me and they're like, dude, what the hell are you doing with your life? Like, pick something.
I saw that you were a nurse, and I was like, just because my background is, I worked in healthcare for a while, so I was like, thank you for being a nurse. But at the same time, I was like, that's very different than what you're doing right now. That's very, very different.
Yeah, and well, it's not as different as you think. So, like, the number one thing that they teach you in nursing school is empathy. I mean, you have to be able to empathize and sympathize with the patient, right? So what I did is we treat people's brands like they're living organisms. When you walk into the room with a patient, you have 5 minutes or so to try to figure out how to tell that person that just got a 10-inch incision through their sternum to chill out and take some pills,
that
and
makes
relax.
Sense, though.
And then also dealing with the family members and all the other stuff. And you're dealing across the lifespan. So it's different when you're talking to a 27-year-old versus a 60-year-old versus a 40-year-old. They all have different priorities. They're in different places in life. And I was like, what if we applied that to marketing and we actually gave a crap about what people were thinking, and then just reverse engineered like the messaging centered around what that person actually wants to hear. And then it just moved. It just blew up. It's like, wow, what a logical thought. And then people looking and they're like, wow, nursing and marketing is so different. I'm like, actually, it's basically just psych.
Yep.
Just in different avenues. Yeah. So I'm curious.